Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Conscious Contact Speaker Group of Doylestown. Okay, we'll grab some seats here real quick. Announcements. There is absolutely no smoking on church property. Please be mindful of the facility. Treat it kindly. They're very nice to us. They give us the keys to this $10 million facility, and this is a pretty epic night every Saturday. So be mindful of that. And Teresa's going to come up here and chair this meeting. If you like any CDs, past or present, they're absolutely free. We give them away to you. If you have any flyers or events going on, can you please leave them here on our back table so we can distribute them? And if you don't, if you're not a part of the Conscious Contact Speaker Group on Facebook, it's a really good idea to get connected with that. Not so much even for this group, but all the other functions that go on in Alcoholics Anonymous every day of the week. It's a good way to stay informed. And if you have any events, anything pertaining to AA, especially anniversaries, because I always say free food and a half decent speaker, I'm in, right? So anyway, Teresa's going to come up here and chair this meeting. Have a good night.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Conscious Contact Speaker Group of Alcoholics Anonymous. My name is Teresa, and I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Teresa.
This is a one-hour speaker meeting that meets every Saturday evening at St. Paul's Lutheran Church, right here in Doylestown at 8:30 p.m. The business meeting for this group meets every Saturday at 7 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. right here. The purpose of the group is to provide a consistent message of hope and recovery through God reliance and service to others through practice and teaching of the 12 steps. We record all speakers so that others may benefit from their message of recovery. If you wish not to be recorded, simply ask. This is an open meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. This group would like to welcome everyone, especially newcomers. Is there anyone new or from out of town that would like to introduce themselves with their first name? Welcome. Hi, Tyler. Welcome. Anybody else? Welcome, everyone. The Conscious Contact Speaker Group encourages sponsorship. Would anyone with working knowledge of the 12 steps and is willing to sponsor, please raise your hands. Are there any announcements for the good of AA?
NC alcohol and drug addicts. Wednesday nights, hot dogs and beans. Sundays, spaghetti people, ice cream, starters, Chi-Chi, banana split, and pensions in 1810 Somerset, Philadelphia.
We have meeting lists and big books on easy terms. Please see me or any home group member after the meeting. If you cannot afford a big book, the Conscious Contact Speaker Group will give you one at no charge. Anyone willing to make donations for the purchase of big books and CDs to help those who can't afford them can put donations in the jar on the table marked Big Book and CD donations. If you would like a CD of any speaker, past or present, see me or Ron before or after the meeting. They are available free of charge. We are going to have Mike read the preamble.
Mike.
My name's Mike, I'm an alcoholic. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution. Does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any cause. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help out other alcoholics achieve sobriety. Now I'm going to bring up Maggie. She's going to read our 12 steps.
Hi, I'm Maggie. I'm an alcoholic. The AA 12 steps of recovery. 1, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. 6, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. 7, humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings. 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10, continued to take personal inventory and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. 12, having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. And now, give the meeting back to Teresa.
The 7th tradition. Every AA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. At this time, I would like to pass the baskets. We have no dues or fees, but we have expenses. This group provides many services. Your donations cover rent, big books, CDs, events, and workshops. There is absolutely no smoking on the church property. Please take a moment to silence all cell phones and limit movement during the meeting to avoid distractions. Tonight we have a ladies' evening, so I'd like to welcome Aubrey K. from the Portfishington group. She's a good friend of the Conscious Contact Speaker Group.
Hi everyone, I'm Aubrey, I'm an alcoholic. Thank you for having me tonight. Thank you to friends that came along. That makes me, Philly's deep in the house right now, so, which is pretty cool. So sobriety date is March 31st, 2009. I have a sponsor who took me through the 12 steps that I talk to regularly. I sponsor other women and take them through the 12 steps regularly. I have a home group, it's a Portfishington group. We meet Monday nights. Ron was just recently out. It's a 1-hour speaker meeting just like this. And thank God for Alcoholics Anonymous and meetings. And thank you for the home group members that make this meeting available. And thank you for giving back to AA. It's a great way to practice the 12 step. I hate speaking, right? And one of the reasons that I do it is, there's a couple of reasons I speak. One, I don't want to die an alcoholic death. 2, and like the most important reason is that I came to a meeting when I was broken and sick and tired of drinking, and there was a woman standing at a podium. I was sitting in the back, probably on my phone, and feeling really sorry for myself that I did this again. And there was a woman standing up here and she shared a message. And literally the only thing I heard her say is that she used to drown herself in a toilet in jail. But what I saw was the opposite of that. And I knew she was just like me, and I wanted to know how she wasn't the way I felt anymore. And so, I mean, I don't say no to AA, and thank God we have a place to come to change our way of thinking. Man, so I'm going to tell you what I was like, what happened, and what I'm like now in the next hour, and we'll go from there. I grew up in Maryland in a small town, similar, I guess, to this, and I don't know if this is a small town or not. I just got really lightheaded. Excuse me. Okay, it went away. I can see now. I couldn't see for a second, it was weird. Okay, so I grew up in a small town with loving parents, and man, nothing like weird ever happened to me. I literally was taught morals and values. I grew up going to church, and from like the earliest memory, I always felt kind of weird inside. Different from, less than, better than, literally from like the earliest age. I can remember not feeling right, feeling like something was missing in my life, and I wouldn't have been able to tell you that at the time, and I think all little kids feel like that at some point, but like I took it to a whole nother extreme. And so I had super normal parents, and I was really mad that I had super normal parents because I thought, so I had some friends that parents got divorced. I thought that would be cool. I just like wanted something weird to happen in my life to make me like have a reason for feeling weird inside. And so I before I even picked up a drink, I just felt like there was like a problem with me. And I remember feeling like this, so I'll tell you a little story. I grew up going to a Lutheran church, and my dad would always take us to church and not my mom. And I always felt weird about that because I think parents should go to church together. All the other little girls and boys have their parents going to church together. I felt weird talking about God. I didn't understand what God was, all this stuff. And my dad would take me every Sunday, and I hated going because I hated being around people because I just couldn't stand how I felt inside. And I always felt like, should I look at this way? Should I look this way? What should I wear? Did I just say something weird? All this kind of stuff. And I remember going for, I think it was my first communion. And it was a Lutheran church. It's like similar to Catholicism, but there's not saints or something like that. That's how much I learned from church. And so excuse me if I'm making a bunch of mistakes about this, but I will tell you what happened. So feeling super weird inside, my mom's not coming, and I go to my first communion. And everybody's with their mom and dads. We're about to walk down the aisle, and I look down and I look around me, and all the little girls are wearing these beautiful white dresses. And I look down, and I'm like literally wearing a dress the color of Jesus's blood. And we're about to do First Communion. And like that's just like for me, like how I felt in the world. I felt like I was just sticking out, not fitting in, all that good stuff that like alcoholics feel inside, and that's how I felt inside. And I just remember that experience, and I was so resentful at my mother for putting me in this red dress for communion and not going to church till I got sober, really. And I was like, it's my mom, and it was my mom's fault that I drank, right? It was my dad's fault that I drank. If everyone would just leave me alone. And so I always just I have a disconnection from people, right? And that was my problem from an early age. And what happened for me was I found a drink. And the way that it happened was I had this older cousin who was so cool, and I wanted to be just like her because I just was I never felt cool, and I thought if I felt cool, if I went to another school, if I had this or if I had that, everything would be okay. And my cousin had it all together. It looked like she just fit in with the world, had it everything, just could look people in the eye, could talk to people. And I was always always looked down all the time. And her parents got divorced, so her dad went to live somewhere else. I was really jealous about that because I thought that meant she got to go be somebody else somewhere else, and that's what I always wanted to be, somebody else somewhere else. And she got to do that. And I actually said that out loud to my grandmother, and she reminded me of that when I got sober. And that's my alcoholism. I was so grateful for that reminder, but it was also the same sort of thing. I was cringed. I'm man, I should have not said certain things out loud. And so she was do you want to come drink at my dad's? I was in 8th grade. I was absolutely, never drank before in my life, but it sounded amazing. And I can't tell you much about my childhood, but I can tell you about that night before I even picked up a drink, what I wore, right? And I'll tell you what I wore. I wore a t-shirt from Value City. I remember it was from Value City, and they don't have them anymore, so if you're young, you might not know what that is. But Value City was they took all the irregular clothes from all the brand name stores. You could buy them at Value City, but they would put a line through the tag. And I'm so nuts that I ripped the tag out because I don't want anyone to know that my shirt's from Value City. And it was this button-up shirt that was plaid, and I wore little jean shorts, and I go to take my first drink, okay? And I'm so excited to take my first drink. And we go hang out with these older boys. Her dad worked this 3rd shift, so he wasn't gonna be home. And we go to the liquor store with these older boys, and we buy 40 ounces of Old English and straws. And we're not in Philadelphia either, right? And that was the first thing. So we had the straws, and we go back to her dad's basement. We put the straw in the 40, and I literally just chugged the whole thing as an 8th grader, right? Not knowing any better. And this is what happened for me. I chugged this whole 40 ounce of beer, or malt liquor, I don't know what it is. And then I try to take my clothes off, I black out, and I end up throwing up in the toilet all night. And I wake up the next day from this experience, and I'm terrified. And the reason I'm terrified, so like, I did not experience a sense of relief. I experienced a sense of terror, because this is what I thought. I was like, what did I say out loud? Did I say all those weird things that I was thinking inside? I can't believe I took my clothes off. Oh my God, like just full of fear and terror the first time I drank. And I blacked out the first time I drank. And that's literally how the rest of my drinking career went. And of course, an 8th grader doesn't drink every day after that. And I was like, man, I can't drink. I was actually scared to drink after that because of what happened. And like, I didn't want anybody to know how weird I was. Man, if someone calls me weird today, I still get like, ugh. Like, I hate that word. And so, you know, I don't drink immediately, but like, I just want to be connected, okay? So I'm disconnected. I just want to be connected. And I found connection through others in a way, like they made me feel good, right? So I always wanted to feel good, and I'm always seeking to feel good. And like, that's alcoholism for me. So like, I have a spiritual disconnection, right? And I have this mental obsession, but this spiritual disconnection from such an early age. And like, I like sought whatever to fill this hole in my soul, and like I found sports, right? So I played softball, and like I'm full of fear. I can't look at anybody in the eye. I hate being the center of attention, because like I'm so full of this self-centered fear that everybody's thinking about me, everybody's looking at me, and I choose to be a pitcher that's on the center of the field. Everybody is staring at you. And my dad used to say to me, he's like, Aubrey, why do you walk out to the field like that with your head down? Why do you do that? And I would be like, I don't know, Dad. And my dad would want me to practice all the time. And I was just like, fear held me back from being in this world. And so sports worked temporarily. So I would get this connection, right? Feeling a part of a team, right? And then that works temporarily. Seriously, the first boy that told me I was pretty and kissed me on the cheek, I was like, oh my God, the world is gonna be better now. And like, everything's gonna be fine. In 11th grade in high school, I meet a boy, kisses me on the cheek, tells me I'm pretty, and like, we're getting married. And he's gonna own a company, and we're gonna live in a house, and like, all this stuff. Like, that's the only thing that mattered. I wanted anything that would make me feel okay. And literally, while all my friends in high school were making plans to go off to college and do things with themselves, like, I was making plans to drink, party, and like, that's it, drink and party. And like, I had grandiose ideas though, right? I would like, oh, I'm gonna go to France, and then I'm gonna be a fashion designer, and I'm gonna do all this stuff. But like, I never put action behind anything, right? I would get the relief out of those ideas, but then I could never follow through. And because I'm an alcoholic, right? I don't have the power to do that, and I didn't know that. And so I started drinking pretty heavily, and I'm dating this boy that told me I was pretty and kissed me on the cheek, and we were dating for a really long time, actually, till I got sober. And I'm finding relief in the drink, right? So I become the type of drinker in high school that I can't even like go to a party sober. I can't even go to a pregame sober. So like would pregame. Nowadays they call it like Sunday fun day, and I'm like, every day was like that for me, right? Like I couldn't go to class sober. I barely graduate high school, running around, everyone goes off to college, and like I'm going to the community college down from my parents' house, and I have to drink. Like I have to at this point. So I'm getting up and I'm drinking my parents' liquor that they have, and I'm going to class, trying to, do well in school. I'm failing out. My parents are like, what's wrong with you? My dad used to be like this to me. He would be like, Aubrey, if you can just get a C in school, right, I'll buy you something, right? Something that I would really want, like a puppy. And like, I could never do it. I could never do it because a drink was always more important than going to class. A drink was always more important than being a good daughter, even though my intentions were to do well. So I always had good intentions, but I could never follow through with them. And now I heard a speaker recently that said I'd rather be judged by my actions rather than my intentions. And I always want to be judged by my intentions and not my actions. And I thought that was such a beautiful thing for us alcoholics, if you can relate to that, because like my intentions were always good, but my actions were always the opposite. And So I'm drinking, my parents are like, what's wrong with my daughter? And I was like, I'm depressed. I can't live life. And they start sending me to all these doctors, right? They want to help me. If love could have kept me sober, I would have never picked up a drink. Like, they went above and beyond to help me. Everybody did, above and beyond, to help me. And I didn't even know what I suffered from. I didn't know. So I thought going to the doctor sounded like a great idea. Sounds like wonderful. Yes, I'll take medication. That's my problem. I'm depressed. And so I start taking all this medication. I get a DUI, and I was so mad about this because I crashed my car into a telephone pole, and the police come, of course. I crawl out the side, and I was so arrogant and just disrespectful when I'm drinking. And then as soon as I get sober, I'm a pathetic mess. And the police come, and I didn't know you can get a DUI through your blood work at the hospital. So I was not that smart, because they're like, can you walk along this line after I crashed my car? And I was like, no, I can't. I think I have a concussion. They send me to the hospital. I get a DUI in the mail. My parents get me a lawyer. I get off. And they went above and beyond to try to help me, right? And then, so turns out that that boy says to me one day, he's like, Aubrey, he's like, I think you have a problem with drinking. And I was like, actually, I think we have a problem, right? We have a problem. See, for me, alcohol was more important than anything. It was more important than anything. And if he questioned my drinking, he has to go. That's how bad I needed to drink. I needed to drink as much as I needed to take a breath. And because I couldn't stand how I felt sober. It hurt. And so he goes. People are like, we think Aubrey has a problem with drinking. And I'm like, oh, you guys are overreacting. So one morning, because I was a morning drinker, 9 a.m. vodka drinker, because I would shake. And I'm 21 years old by this point, failing in and out of community college, trying to keep it together, waiting tables and blackouts, just a mess. And I drink at 9 a.m. I remember it was a bottle of blueberry Stoli, which is a really, I guess it's a nice vodka. I don't know now if it's nice, but I don't know why I bought it. I guess I had some money at the time. And so I drink this whole bottle of blueberry Stoli. I call my uncle, and I'm like, I'm an alcoholic. I need help. And he's like, great, we'll get you help. I end up in the psych ward, because that's where they send me, and I sober up. And I'm like, everybody's like, my parents are driving back from vacation. They get there and they're like, Aubrey, we're going to send you to rehab. I'm like, wait, I think everybody overreacted. I'll go to outpatient. And I go to an outpatient. And this is the story of how I got here. And I go to outpatient, and I still had so many ideas about what I needed to do to stay sober. So many, right? I just needed a different boyfriend. I needed a different car. If I just really buckled down, all this stuff. And so I go to this outpatient, and I compared myself out so hard. And I remember sitting in this circle at this outpatient group, just looking for an out. Why I'm not one of you. And this guy goes, everybody had to go around and say the worst thing they've ever done. And I'm kind of in the beginning of my alcoholism. My yets hadn't come true yet. And I'm like, shit, what am I going to say? What's the worst thing I've done? I need to fit in. Oh my God, are they going to like me or not? Oh my God, what can I do? And he's like, my mother-in-law's cat would poop outside my door every morning. So I took the cat and I threw it off a bridge. And I'm like, there's no way I'm an alcoholic. I would never throw a cat off a bridge. I swear, I'll never forget. And if you've done that, that's no judgment. It's sad though. And it is. I always feel bad, because I'm like, if somebody did that, it's you can get better, I promise. And I mean that wholeheartedly, because I did some really nasty things when I was drinking, and that's not the person I am today. And I compared myself out, and I would go to AA meetings, and I would go to AA, right? And I couldn't come here sober. I couldn't come anywhere sober. I couldn't stand how I felt sober. And I would be the crying drunk girl in the back, and I'm always looking for them, because I was one of them. And everyone in AA was always so nice. If I was too loud, they would literally take me outside, because I was so I was a pathetic drunk crier. And I remember this one lady said to me, I was like, I'm gonna be homeless. And she's like, if you're homeless, you're homeless. I was like, oh my God. Oh my God. But man, from the second I walked in these rooms, people made me feel welcome. And that's like our biggest job here, and I try to do that, and I get to watch other women do that and like follow in their footsteps. And because I always knew I could come back here when I was ready, and I wasn't ready for a while. And man, I found other things that made me be able to be in public easier than alcohol, right? It also made me steal a lot, and I did those things. And like, man, I'm like a real deal alcoholic. I don't care, just give it to me. Like, I do not want to feel how I feel when I'm sober. And so I went through a bunch of rehabs and detoxes. I got kicked out of rehab several times. I would always find a boyfriend in rehab, right? And I don't know if you guys do this, but because I can't stand how I feel inside. And like, oh my God, it was so sick. I was so sick, and they were so sick, and we would just be sick. And like, I got kicked out of rehab for smoking a Newport up at an event. You weren't allowed to smoke in the rehab, and I was so mad because I had just told on everyone from getting high. Like the week before was this new rehab. They were trying to get their stuff together. I was like, they all just got high, and then you're gonna kick me out for smoking a cigarette? They're like, get out, get out. And I go home, and man, step one for me really was this exact moment. I had been to AA. I had kind of heard what was going on here. I didn't understand what the steps were, but I get to this, I get kicked out of this rehab, and I call my parents, and like, you can come home for 24 hours. My dad's like, get out in 24 hours. He's like, I will put you out. I will call the cops. Best thing he could have ever done. And I get to my parents' house, and I call my sponsor. I had a sponsor at the time, and I call her. I'm like, oh my God, her name was Heather. I was like, Heather, like, I want to drink so bad. I want to drink so bad. I don't know what to do. Like, I want to drink. And she's like, Aubrey, get on your knees and pray and ask God not to take a drink. And that's what I did. I got on my knees. I was like, God, please, I don't want to drink. Please, I don't want to drink. Help me stay sober. And she was like, I'll be there in 20 minutes. And I literally went upstairs in my parents' house. They had a liquor cabinet. It was wooden. They had put like a deadbolt lock around it and like a chain that I couldn't get in it. I'm not kidding. It's really embarrassing. And I sawed it open. Like, that's the type of alcoholic I am. They had like lines on the bottle so they could tell if I was drinking. Like, I was so sick, and I sawed it open and I drank, even when I didn't want to. That's how powerless I am over alcohol. I drank when I didn't want to drink. I would make a decision not to drink, and then I would drink. And I did that. And I remember my dad was dead serious. I wasn't allowed to be there. And so the boyfriend that also left rehab, which was really romantic when I got kicked out, drove me to my next rehab. And I remember getting to this rehab. It was in York, Pennsylvania. So basically, I had used up all my free rehabs in Maryland. So I used a friend's address in PA to get into a free rehab in PA. So I ended up in York, Pennsylvania. And I believe that like a lot of what happened in my story, and especially at this point, is just like angels are just coming through here and there and like really like influencing me to eventually have a spiritual solution in AA. And I get to this rehab. I've been to tons of rehabs before. It wasn't anything new. I read the steps on the wall, whatever. I go to groups and I'm miserable. I'm worried about the boyfriend who's hacking rides in Baltimore, if he's gonna make enough money to get us a place, you know. And there's this girl in the rehab. Her name was Kicker Sue. That was her nickname because she would, okay, I won't explain why that's her nickname. But she was in rehab. She got there about a week before I got there. And I had seen so many people that tried to help me, right? And like, I don't know why, but Kicker Sue said to me, she's like, she just started sharing her experience in AA. She talked about her sponsor. She talked about her steps. She talked about York Alcoholics Anonymous and that they would like drive around and do all this fun stuff. She talked about AA in a way I had never heard it before. Never. And like, it's one alcoholic helping another. And she was just like me. The reason I heard her, because she was just like me. She was sober like 3 more days than I was, right? And she just made me feel excited about Alcoholics Anonymous and excited that maybe there's hope for an alcoholic like me. And so when that counselor, they asked me where I wanted to go right afterwards, and I'm like, well, I don't know. You tell me where I can go. I don't have anywhere to go. And was like, but I was thinking maybe Baltimore or Frederick. I don't know, because I don't know why Frederick, Maryland, but that was one of them. And she's like, well, why don't you stay in New York? And literally I was just like, okay. So they send me to this this recovery house in York, PA, and I get there and I'm like, so when you remove alcohol from me, this is what happens. I'm full of fear. I keep thinking about the next drink, right? I can't look you in the eye. I don't know what to do with myself. It hurts. It hurts to be sober. And that's how I felt. That's how I felt. And restless, irritable, discontent, right? And that's how I am. And I get to this recovery house, and I remember this old lady answered the door and was like, put your stuff here, this is the chore list, this is what you need to do, get a home group, go to IOP, get a sponsor, do the steps, ride the bus. And I was like, oh my God. And right behind this woman were these two ladies that came up to me and brought me to meetings, right? And I go to my meeting, I guess, in York, and I was like, I don't know, 2008, and I get to this AA meeting, and I pick a sponsor that was like, she's really scary, right? Like, she was like convicted, and I was like, that's what I need. And man, this woman, she was so great. She would walk from her house, which was like maybe like a half a mile or like to a mile from my recovery house, and she started taking me through the steps of the big book, 12 Steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. She would walk to my house, sit with me for an hour, walk back to her house, and then do that a couple times a week. And I went through the steps. There was a couple problems though. I got a gym membership, which is fine, right? Which is fine, but I didn't get a home group, right? I lied on my 4th step. I didn't even know I lied on my 4th step. I was delusional, right? So like, we're delusional when we get here. And I wasn't seeking a spiritual solution, but I knew when it was there, right? Oh, I would go late to work all the time. I would take tons of cigarette breaks at work. I'd call my parents and ask them for money because I would overdraw my bank account because I had to buy this shirt or something like that. I got a boyfriend, right? A new one, because the guy hacking rides in Baltimore was, gone somewhere. And what happened was I'm cleaning houses one day, because that's what I did, and I walked by something that I knew will alter my state of mind, right? So I walked by some alcohol, and walk by it once, I walk by it again, and the next time I pick it up, and I pop 2, right? Pocket the rest. And like it says, it's like one time there's going to be something that comes between you and a drink, right? And hopefully God's there. I messed that up, but whatever. And I didn't have it, and I didn't like how I felt inside. I didn't even know it was coming. And I drank. I did not have an entire psychic change that's necessary for me to not take a drink. I didn't have one. And I wasn't taking the action in AA. And drink looked good to me, and I took it, and like literally I overdosed the next day. I end up in a seedy hotel that my boyfriend at the time had paid for, and drunk and miserable, and like I'm like the nastiest drunk. And I remember my parents coming to the hotel room, and I had my last drink was a 6-pack of Miller Lite. How pathetic is that? And it's like, would not be my choice of my last drink. And I literally chugged this 6-pack of Miller Lite and like barricaded myself in the bathroom and ended up in the psych ward at York Hospital, like, I don't know, like an hour later, wondering how this happened again. And, man, and like for me, I think when I got there, I was so resentful, and I was resentful at myself. I was resentful at others. So I can't see life clearly. That's my problem. I have a disease of perception. Like, I literally don't see things clearly. I'm wrong about life, right? And I was so wrong about life at that point that like I was resentful at the girls in the recovery house celebrating a year while I'm in the psych ward. Why aren't they here, right? That's what, like, those are the thoughts coming through my mind. And then I'm so mad at myself. It's like, why can't I get sober, right? And like, how did I do this again to my family? I had like actually read my parents the promises out of the big book. I felt horrible. They were excited about AA as much as like anybody is when your family knows you're getting sober and you're not going to cause havoc in their lives anymore. And I remember being there just like feeling as low as one can feel. And just like, why again? And so I stay there for a couple days, and I go back to that recovery house, right? I knew there was a solution here. And I actually knew it wasn't anybody else's fault. I did know that, but it didn't like inhibit me from having resentments toward everybody else. And so I go back to that recovery house feeling broken and defeated, and I go to an AA meeting, and I see this woman standing at a podium just like this, and she talks about drowning herself in a toilet in jail, but she was looking at people in the eye. She did not look dirty like she would look if she was drowning herself in a toilet in jail in order to get meds. And I literally chased that woman down after the AA meeting. It was like a big meeting like this, maybe even a little bigger. And like I was afraid I was gonna miss her. Like that's how bad, like I didn't want to feel the way I felt anymore. And I chased her down, and she was like, do you have a sponsor? And I remembered her. And that's like the beautiful part of having a home group, because like I remembered that woman being at that group, and like I knew something was different about her, and I knew something was working for her. And she's like, do you have a sponsor? I was like, yeah. She's like, okay. I was like, but my sponsor's not answering the phone. Like, she wasn't. I was calling her actually, like probably like really annoyingly, like every like 6 minutes. And she wasn't answering the phone. And then she's like, well, I want you to continue to call her and seek her help, but still call me every day, right? Still call me every day till you can connect with her. And then we'll talk. And so I did that, and I ended up connecting with my sponsor. I went to a meeting with her, and I remember she fist fought her boyfriend outside the meeting, my sponsor at the time. I was like, oh my God, please help me, to the woman I was currently talking to. She's like, yes, I'll help you. And this is what this woman did, and like the most beautiful thing in the world was this. And she had a home group near her house, and she would drive 20 minutes to my recovery house, 20 minutes back to her home group, drive me 20 minutes back to my recovery house, and sit with me on the back porch of my recovery house on a Saturday night. I was like, does she not have a life? And she took me through the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I was as honest that I could be. And I remember for the first time, so for an alcoholic like me, I never knew what freedom was or what peace was. Like I had no idea what that felt like. So when I experienced it for the first time, it was the most powerful thing in the world. And I remember like the wind was blowing and the leaves were like shaking, and I just remember being like, I'm okay. Never felt that way before in my entire life. My entire life, I never felt that way. And I remember crying, and I remember her crying too, and it was like the most beautiful moment of my entire life. And I'll never forget that moment. And I actually remember, she was probably reading, I think she was about to outline my 5th step. And I remember following her direction, like hanging on her every word, because like I was beginning to experience a sense of freedom. And I remember just walking around like the town and like seeing the world through different eyes, literally different eyes. I was wrong about life, right? And that's what the 12 steps did for me. I was wrong about life. I was a taker, right? I always tried to take from every single relationship that I was in. I never looked to give. Why would you do that? The more you take, the more you get. And it turns out the more you give, the more you get. And that's like kind of what the 12 steps did for me. And I went through all the 12 steps with her. And I remember getting to the 9th step. And I had read my parents the promises and then would call them for money and be like, hey, can I have my car back? Can I do this? Can I have this? I remember like having the change in perception that it's like, I cannot be the same person that I am. And the only way that I can do that is through God, right? So I don't have the power to choose, right? I don't have the power to decide what's best for me. But if I tap into God, I can do those things. And I remember like having the experience of like calling my parents instead of like asking them for something. I asked how they were. I asked if there's anything I can do for them. I remember just stopping asking them for money and like grinding it out. And like I remember when I got sober, I rode the bus. I got a job working. I worked at a deli in Wise Market slicing deli meat, and I loved it because I love deli meat, and especially olive loaf. And like I remember slicing olive loaf and like being like, my life's so great. And I just like the way that my perception of the world changed was like phenomenal to me. That like I don't have to walk around in fear anymore. And like my favorite part of the book is we commence to outgrow fear. And like what that really like has meant for me is that like my whole life has been run on fear. Everything, every decision I made has been run on fear. And like now I don't have to do that anymore, and I have God, and God will protect me. I remember I would even like pretend like God's wrapping his arms around me while I walk through things, and like God's hugging me as I'm doing this. Like just like anything like that, I was just like, oh my God, God is so good. And I'm so grateful for those experiences. And so I didn't make direct amends to my parents, but I did everything I could to make living amends, right? So it's like I didn't say sorry to people anymore. Like I actually took action to be a different person. And I got a home group, and that has been, man, I've had a home group for 10 years straight, like consistently. There's been a 3-week period that I didn't have a home group when I had moved. And like, I always hated all of my home groups. And like, I'm gonna tell you why. Because I have a disease of perception, and my perception's wrong, right? And like, I know that now, and I actually love my home group right now. It's the first time in a long time. But I hated my home group because of fear, right? I was afraid of what others thought. And like, I joined this home group in York, PA, that was full of old timers, right? And they made you speak for your anniversary. And I was so fearful of speaking for my anniversary that one of the old timers, I was like, I don't want to speak. I'm too humble to speak. I don't want to do it. He's like, you know, that's your ego, right? And I'm like, you know what I mean? And I did it. I walked through the fear. I spoke for 5 minutes and sat down. And also, what else have I done consistently? So, couple things. I have this change in perception. My life is different, and I'm working in this deli, and my sponsor says to me, like, what do you want to do with the rest of your life? I'm like, I don't know. She's like, well, why don't you pray about it and you know, see where God wants you to go? And I remember this lady came into Wise Markets one day and ordered her olive loaf, and like and she said to me, she's like, what do you want to do with your life? I was like, I don't know. She's like, what, did you ever think of being a teacher? And I was like, yeah, actually I thought about that. And it was so weird. And like, I was always, so I had this sense that I was never good enough my whole life. I was never good enough, never smart enough, never pretty enough, never kind enough, you know, just never enough in all areas. And I remember saying that, and like my sponsor was like, do you want to go back to school? I was like, I should. That would make my parents really proud if I went back to school. And I remember I learned everything that I know about life in Alcoholics Anonymous, literally everything. Even though my parents taught me it, like I didn't hear from them anything. And I remember like my sponsor and another member of Alcoholics Anonymous walking me through a college campus. It's like, we don't do anything alone in AA. That's the most beautiful part. Like I don't have to be alone anymore. And like God is number one, and then like people are number two because they connect me to God. That's where I see God, is through people, and meet God is through people. And I remember they walked me around the college campus, and like I enrolled back in school. I had failed out of community college 4 times, because I was drinking. learned that, my sponsor told me that, she's like, well, when you go to class, you sit up front, you ask questions, and then ask your classmates if they need help. I was like, what? I was like the old person. I was 23 when I got sober, and I remember like being like the person in class that was so engaged. I sat up front, I would ask questions, I asked my classmates for help, and same thing, principal in AA, sit up front, ask for help when you need it, and give help when you can. And that's what I did, and I got to go back to school, and my parents were proud, and man, I met a guy in AA, and this is how every relationship I've had has been, right? Not this particular one, but this is so I like, I'm so sick, I should not be in relationships until I got sober and went through the 12 steps, and then it was like kind of shaky, but I met this guy in AA, and he was really great, and I really liked him, and every single relationship prior to this, I saw what that relationship could provide to me. Every relationship, really. And I remember meeting this guy, and I was like, oh my God, he's so cute, I really like him, he's also sober, and like we start dating and all this good stuff, and he was like, I'm gonna move to Philadelphia. And meanwhile, I have a foundation in Alcoholics Anonymous, I have a job, I'm going to school, and beforehand, before I went through the 12 steps, I would have thrown all that away, be like, I'm coming to Philly, let's go. And I didn't do that, and I prayed, and I talked to my sponsor, and I was like, look, like, I can't come to Philadelphia, right? Like, I have so much going on right now, I have school, but like, I would come later, right? And like, I literally put God in front of a human for the first time, and it was just like a huge deal for me, because before it's like, man, like a human always came before God. Anything that makes me feel good is gonna come before God. And I didn't do that. And I finished school, and then I like for a semester, it was like six months or something like that, and then I ended up moving to Philadelphia. And let me tell you, I went from a small town, like I literally was living in my parents' basement until I was 23 years old. And the first time I drove to Philadelphia, seeing that city skyline, that's a big deal for someone like me. That was like a whole spiritual experience in itself, and I don't want to forget stuff like that. I'm like, I don't even know why I'm standing up here in front of you guys. Like, I am not supposed to be, and I don't know if I'm supposed to be or not, but like, this is God-given that I get to have a beautiful life. And I remember seeing that city skyline and thinking like, oh my God, God, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Being so grateful that I get to live in this world free. And I transferred to Temple University, and it's like much different than York. I was at York College, and it was much different. Everything was different. So I moved to Philadelphia. Maybe I was like 6 years sober, maybe a little, I don't know. No, I had to be like 3 years sober. And full of fear, because I get to Philly AA, and everyone's like so hard. Like, I don't know how to, like, it's like just a little harder of AA, and I remember just like all those things came back for me, feeling less than, not a part of. And I remember I couldn't get a home group for 3 weeks because I had like some like school commitment at Temple, and just like I remember like crying on like my husband's bed. He wasn't my husband at the time, and just like pathetic, like, oh my God. And this is what AA did. AA showed up for me. A friend helped me get a job, right? Another friend showed me around to all the meetings in the city. Like, I was not alone. I was not alone. And like, I walked through the fear, and this whole time I was full of fear moving to Philadelphia. Like, God was right beside me, and I was seeking God, and I got a home group. I got a commitment in that home group pretty quickly, and I started to look to be useful in AA, right? So that's my job, to be useful in Alcoholics Anonymous, and then everything else will fall into place if that's number one. And so I did that, and I remember, so my whole entire life, like I was just incapable of living in this world, whole entire life, and then all of a sudden, after I go through these 12 steps, that I'm capable of living in this world. I'm capable of doing anything that I set my mind to and work hard at and invite God in on. And I remember I was about to graduate from Temple University, and I had to put in the system at Temple like where I wanted my diploma sent. And so I was like, okay, so we were in the process of moving. I don't want my diploma. It's a big deal for me, right? I failed out of community college 4 times. My diploma needs to go somewhere safe. What's safe is my parents' house. I'll send it there. And so my dad calls me one day and he says to me, he's like, Aubrey, we got a letter from Temple University. Highly concerned, right? It's like, why are we getting a letter from Temple University? And I was like, oh my God, Dad, open the letter, right? And completely forgetting of like what I put him through for my entire life, really. And so he opens the letter, and the letter says, Dear Aubrey Kuyan, you're graduating in the top 12% of your class. Congratulations. And my dad got to open that letter, right? And like my dad was the type of person who would, like, he would beg me. He's like, Aubrey, if you just get a C, I'll buy you this. If you get a D, I'll buy you this. Just pass. I'll give you everything you want. And like my dad got to open that letter, and like no amount of really anything could do that of what I could say to make amends to my dad. And like that's what Alcoholics Anonymous does to my family. It repairs that, right? I get to watch my brother walk down the aisle or be at the end of the aisle when his wife gets married and be in his wedding. I get to watch friends get married. I get to watch friends have babies, right? I get to do all kinds of really awesome things. Like the bright spot of my life really has been taking women through the 12 steps, right? Recently, like I've, been sober a while, life's perfect, and all of a sudden my husband and I got really scary and sad news, right? My husband was diagnosed with cancer. It's like stage 4. It's like legit, like scary stuff. And I remember just being so full of fear when this happened. And it's been almost 2 years actually now. And I remember when this happened and I was praying, I was like, God, please just help me be useful. Please just help me be useful. And I go to a meeting, and I hate this meeting, and I would just like force myself to go there. And I walk there by myself, and it's on a Thursday night, and like I would force myself to go there just feeling terrible, but I don't want to die of alcoholism because this is like the biggest thing that's ever like happened in my life. And I'm like, oh my God, like what, like I don't want to take a drink. I'm not even thinking about taking a drink, but I'm just so full of fear. I don't know what to do. And like I walk to this meeting every Thursday, like just like scared and angry. And there's this girl sitting outside the meeting, and she's crying, and there's nobody else around. And I've sponsored a lot of women since I've been sober, like a normal amount of women. Like I actively sponsor women, and like I meet this woman, she's crying, and she is so sick, and she is so sad, and she's like reminds me exactly of myself when I walk in here. And like I just got the worst news, and my husband and I just got the worst news of our lives. And like, man, I was praying, I was like, God, just help me be useful. Like I don't know what to do with myself. And I get this woman that is like willing to go to any lengths to stay sober, and she's just so like sick, and she's just like me. And like I believe that God put her in my life like to keep me around for a little bit. And like, yeah, that was like almost 2 years ago, and like she is like active in AA, and like she was just like me. Like she literally did everything I said. It was like the easiest person I've ever sponsored in my whole life. And like, and I just like couldn't believe it. And then I got this other woman that was like so willing to be sponsored and like do the steps, and like back to back these 2 women. And I was like, God, thank you so much. And like I really like I just believe that like God has continued to put people in my life for a reason, and I'm so grateful for that. And like I also believe that like he's been doing that my whole life. I was just too self-centered and full of fear to ever see it. And and because of AA, like I get to live a beautiful, beautiful life, and have beautiful friends and beautiful experiences, and a beautiful dog, and a beautiful husband too. So I'm just grateful to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Aubrey. Let's thank her one more time for coming in. Epic call. It's customary for us to form a line and thank our speakers formally. They come here at their own time and expense to share their experience with you guys. We have an easy cleanup tonight. We just got to put those chairs on the side. The tables and chairs stayed. It's set up this way for the church. They asked us to do that. We're heading over afterwards to Perkins, half-off appetizers. You're all invited if you want to come over. If you can't afford it, don't worry, we'll cover you. If you'd like to care to join us, we will end with the Lord's Prayer. We'll circle up if you want, or maybe if you just want to stay here. I don't think we got enough room to circle up in here today. The chairs and the tables stay. We need some help with the kitchen if you want to help cleaning that up and be of service and clean up the tables, whatever it helps. Oh, I forgot next week is Judith A. from New Jersey. All right, we get that circle together. Take a moment of silence. Use it however you like. And we'll join us with the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven,